Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Let's see, I'm just gonna hop on and make sure everything's good. Yep, looks like I'm live. Let's see, if you're here, say hi in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from. There you are, Megan. Woohoo! Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna bring you on. Welcome, guys. Bring Megan on.
Yes. I love this feature. I have an announcement that I'm like, hi, welcome. Awesome. Glad you made it. I have I've decided to do something, but I'm nervous about announcing it for no reason. Because then, once you announce it, it's like it's gotta happen, right?
Yep.
So I'm just gonna leave you guys on a cliffhanger for a second. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Let me know where you're watching from. We have a fun topic again lined up today for our little series of Make More Money in May, with really a strong focus on communication and how that plays a really important role in how we work with our clients and get results and all that fun stuff, which is really important for continuing to get clients. So awesome. How are you doing, Megan?
I'm good. Yeah, just playing with my new puppy, which is of course always fun. He came home last Friday. So yeah, he had his first vet appointment this morning and he did wonderfully.
So how did the vet handle the hi Alasha, thanks for hopping on. How did the vet handle the visit and everything, like the all the COVID
Yeah, so
stuff?
it is still curbside check-in, which I was nervous about because of course
Yeah.
no one, especially a trainer, wants to hand over their baby puppy. But I work really closely with my vets and I trust them a whole lot. And the great thing about puppies is that everyone's going to fuss over them, and he's really confident. I would have been had to coach them a lot more if he were nervous about people in terms of like, don't overwhelm him. And but he was super excited to get handed off to someone else, and he was wiggling. And I also sent him in with a topple that was filled with canned food so that he had something good to work on. And so, yeah, it went really well. And they reported that he did great. So,
good.
Yeah.
You ever wonder, when they say, "Oh, he did great."
I actually, because I work really closely with them, I was like, no, like I jokingly call it the grooming shop good, because I used to work as a groomer, and it's like, oh, he did great. And is it like, oh, is it grooming shop good, or was he like actually good? And they said, yeah, he was a little whiny at times, but he took it all in stride. But yeah, you do always have to like, what do you mean by good?
I know. I love the term grooming shop good because I used to work on actually probably most, I don't know if anybody knows this. I used to work as a PetSmart bather back in early high school. And so, yeah, it's like you hand him over. Yeah, he did great. I have 9 fingers left, but he did great. Awesome. Well, I went yesterday during my walk. I don't know, I felt like a piece of pollen or something flew into my eye.
I saw that.
I thought it would kind of go away on its own. It was kind of like, a little bit irritated, but like the pain kind of went and came and whatnot. But like, yeah, it like woke me up at like 3 a.m. because it was painful. And then, so I decided to go to the eye doctor today. And like, we're pretty isolated. The only time we go out is to get groceries like every other week or something like that. So we don't really go out much. I went to grab like a coffee from the coffee shop, which is a really small shop. So I was like, the eye doctor kind of has to get close to your face to see your eyes. So, I wasn't too sure how it was going to go, but they were so like professional about everything. They actually did like the intake form, from my car. I pulled up and I called in like they told me to, and they basically answered the questions verbally, and she filled out the form for me. And then they like, they're like, put on a mask and come to the door, we'll let you in.
Yeah.
like a top secret operation, you know? And so then I had my mask on, and everybody obviously had their masks on, and they took my temperature walking in, which is funny.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've had my temperature taken by one of those things that like doesn't even touch you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it just like, just like hovers over your forehead. And so that was odd. I was like, you know, do you need me to touch it? Like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he looked around and he said he couldn't find anything. So hopefully the pain and the tears has washed it away.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, and hopefully it heals quickly now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was an interesting experience, but it was quick and really well done. So it's really amazing how everybody has adapted like remarkably well to the situation. And it's not like
That's
anybody's had a choice really, but it's still really impressive to me. So
Yeah, I was
proud
just
of
going to
people.
say, it really makes you think about ours is not the only industry who has had
No.
to improve, expectation setting,
Yeah.
communication skills with their clients because
Yeah.
it really is, you pull up to a place and see big signage out front that says, give us a call when you arrive. And,
Yeah.
it's been a shift for everyone. And it is
Yeah.
interesting that, when you say like it wasn't really a choice that we all made, but somehow in an interesting way that has you talk about no excuses. That's kind of
Hmm.
how this whole
Yeah.
situation has been for a lot of people, is like,
Hmm.
well, you got to figure it out now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how I feel about my video skills. That was my thing that I did not enjoy doing, and through all of
Yeah.
this I'm like, well, I guess I'm good at video editing now.
Right. Right. Yeah. And so many good points there. But yeah, like the communication, and like what the eye doctor was really well at communicating to me was like the process. They were like, okay, this is what you're gonna do. You're gonna pull up, you're gonna park, you're gonna call us, we're gonna go through the form, then we're gonna let you in, take your temperature. Like they were just really structured with it, and the whole time I felt really comfortable and like guided through the whole process. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's often overlooked in the dog training
Mm-hmm.
industry because we make so many assumptions because it all kind of comes naturally to a lot of us. Like
Mm-hmm.
we know what to do with the dogs, we know how to hold a leash, we know how to juggle a million pieces, and so we I think often make the assumption that our clients can do all that stuff too when it's really not a natural mechanical maneuvering of things, or even understanding like how to work with you and that kind of stuff, and how to communicate with you in return. So I think that's why it's such an important topic to go over. Um, and one of the things we're talking about. Oh, I guess I should talk about my little decision.
Yeah.
Are you curious, Megan?
I'm very curious. I'm like, what are we talking about? I don't know if I
I
know.
have been told, a couple of people know, obviously, because they need to be in the loop. But yeah, so I've decided to restart the podcast.
Ooh.
But it's going to be in a little bit different format. It's going to be partly some, one-to-one interviews with me. There may be some, I don't know, it's going to be whatever I want it to be. So it's going to be interviews, but also probably repurposing some of these Facebook Lives, and really just turning them into podcasts that people can listen to on the go. And then, yeah, we'll see what else I'm inspired to create for the podcast. I've been thinking of like short little audio clips, kind of like, my post turned audio or something like that, so that, again, you can listen to them on the go as you're driving around town. I don't know where to right
Yeah.
now, but eventually, right?
Yeah, I know a lot of people who listen
So,
to podcasts as like a pairing thing with like having to do dishes or
yeah,
laundry or any task that you don't necessarily want to do,
that's true.
to
Very
use
true.
that as like, well, but I get to listen to my favorite podcast, so I guess it's
Yeah.
not so bad. So it's a really great thing to kind of pair with a less pleasant task.
Yes. Yes. That's what my husband does the dishes. So
You're lucky.
he I am he's great. So he will listen to stream on Twitch. It's like a video game streaming platform while he does the dishes
Mhm.
in the evenings. So yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I guess I just have to do more chores or something.
Find more stuff to do.
Yeah, I do the outside work. I enjoy mowing and
Yeah.
gardening and even like snow shoveling and that kind of stuff. So I do like the outside work and he does the inside work. So it's kind of like a role reversal. But yeah. So
As
anyway,
long as the
bringing
stuff's
that
getting
back.
done, that's good.
Yes, it
Mhm.
is. So yeah, we're gonna bring back the podcast. It's gonna be a little bit different than it used to be, but I think that I've set, just like all of you guys, like I set mental like requirements in order for things to happen. And I'm like, I don't need it to be like that. I can just make it whatever I want it to be.
Yeah.
And so I need to just move forward and just make it happen, right? So
Mhm.
here we go. Anyways, so today we're talking about 3 ways in which communication is, oh, no, that was last week. How communication online is different than in person. And I think that as we kind of spoke about earlier, the online stuff, or even over the phone, like you have to be really direct is kind of like the first point I want to make. Like I said, in the eye doctor, like they called me and told me exactly what to do. They had a process lined up and there wasn't a question in my mind of like what I was supposed to do, and how that was all going to happen with all the COVID requirements. So that applies also to teaching somebody the mechanics. You can't just like say like put your hand there. You have to
Mhm.
actually be really, really specific in how you explain how to train their dog online. So do you have any anything you want to add to that maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. You have to be really clear with your words, and be able to describe things, which is something that I've had to work on. When I started teaching nose work, I realized that I would have a problem. Someone would say, "Well, what's the search area?" And I'd be like over to that tree, sorta, and then over.
Yeah.
And I just like didn't have descriptive terms like ready,
Yeah.
and so I've had to actually practice like how do I describe something to someone without having to physically go out and say here to here to here,
Right.
right? And like it was good practice. So I think that's really important, is figuring out and even just practicing, what those sorts of descriptive terms are.
Yeah.
And if you find that people are confused by what you're saying, spend some time thinking about what it is that you could say differently. And I think we've all experienced that with other stuff in dog training. I think the biggest thing that I think people struggle with online communication is that they think it's going to be wildly different, and there are
Mm-hmm.
differences. But I think we have to remember that we know a lot of this stuff, right?
Yeah.
It just feels different when, especially like if you're recording a Zoom lesson, it feels more permanent. It's like, oh my gosh, this is going to be there, right? Like, whereas if you just have a conversation with someone, yeah, you might say something kind of awkward and then they forget it by the time the conversation's over.
Right.
So I think that kind of gets into our heads where we feel this permanence of like taking a video of ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
recording a Zoom lesson. But really, we know how to connect with people just like we do in their homes. And so we just need to remember that it isn't entirely different, right? There are
Right.
some things that are important to know and to be aware of, like not being able to demonstrate something with your body as easily. But I also think that we've all experienced that where you have said something. I'm trying to think of an example in my head, but you've said something a certain way, and then maybe you hear another trainer say it, and you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's going to make so much more sense to my clients," and you
Yeah.
change your language. And so I
Right.
think that kind of thing just takes practice, but it's certainly a skill that we all need to improve on, probably anyway.
Yeah, and I think that really being online kind of exposes some weaknesses, I guess, in
Mhm.
communication that maybe people have not realized before. Um, and it's really just, brought that to the forefront because, when you're there in person, you have a crutch. Like you can do things for them, you can move things around for them. Like you
You
have a
can
lot
hold the
of,
dog for them if it's
yeah,
like while they're trying to get themselves set up. You're like, oh, I'll talk
yeah,
to your dog and pet
yeah,
it while they're getting treats and whatever. And then all of a sudden they're trying to do that on their own, and they're like, oh my gosh, this dog's all over me. Yeah, like
yeah,
it's amazing how much we rely on little things that I don't think we are really consciously aware of. While, you know, at the time, I wouldn't have said that I was a person that used demonstrating with their dog as a crutch, but I did have to kind of reflect and go, wow, I do actually work with their dog a decent amount, right? Like that's something that I have
Yeah.
fallen back on in the past, especially if I'm feeling like it's a little bit hard to coach them in that moment, right? Because there
Mhm.
are always going to be those people that you're like, okay, wait, but no, that's not exactly what I was trying to tell you. And, you know, you start to feel that little bit of frustration, like, I don't know if I'm actually effectively communicating with this person. And instead of saying, okay, that's something I need to work on, we say, oh, let me just see your dog. Let me show you. And
Yeah.
then
I
you know,
feel
you
you.
get to, you've got another way, like you said, it's a crutch. So I
Mm.
think it's a great thing to be aware of, and
Mhm.
it'll just make us better trainers, you know, all around.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And then the other thing is, you know, as we know, since we work with dogs, like body language is huge.
Mhm.
And even with people,
Yeah.
right? We use body language to make ourselves more approachable or, um, you know, make people feel more comfortable. And I think that we need to make sure that we're also doing that online. And online, it's the same intention, the same like not result necessarily, but that's kind of what you want. You want them to feel the same way in which, you know, if you could manipulate your body language in a way to make them feel more comfortable in person, you want to be able to use tools online to do the same thing and make them more comfortable and relaxed about what you're trying to communicate to them. So online that looks maybe more like using emojis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, it just helps people put like facial expressions to the words that you're trying to say so that it's more relatable, it's more easy to interpret, it gives more context. And so I think that's one of the things that you want to consider using, you know, even in emails, if you're having to convey something that is serious or worrisome, or you know they're going to be concerned, or you know, or you're trying to make a joke,
Mhm.
make sure that you accompany your information with emojis when it's necessary and when it makes sense,
Yeah.
especially on social media, obviously. But
Right.
I want to also highlight, you know, in other avenues as well, emails, texting, that kind of stuff. It can be really helpful.
Yeah,
Do you use
absolutely.
emojis?
I would say not so much in emails, definitely
Yeah.
in on social media.
Hmm.
But I do think that you do have to be extremely thoughtful about the fact that, especially in something like an email, because you're not having that same kind of back and forth. I mean, it happens on
Yeah.
social media too, where one person leaves a comment and then someone else reads it way later. But it's a little bit easier to just say like, wait, what did you mean by that, if you're a
Right.
little bit uncertain?
Right.
Whereas an email, again, it kind of has a little more of that finality where it's like it's there, it's in their inbox, and they could stew over it for, you know, 24 hours if something
Yeah.
doesn't sit right with them. And so I think it is really important to be aware of what sorts of things kind of work in written text and
Hmm.
don't.
Yeah.
That they're, you know, I like to use humor to kind of lighten the mood, but it may not work over an email, right? It may not
Right.
come off. And so I think that's where sometimes, you know, writing something out, especially if, like you said, it's a serious topic or it's something that's, you know, that they really might not receive well or something like that,
Hmm.
that it might be good to just like sit on it for a couple of hours, leave it in your
Yeah.
drafts box, and then
Yeah.
come back and read it again, kind of with fresh eyes, and even like read it out loud, just because
Hmm.
it's that that nuance that you may be missing in written text, that just that you come back and you go, I don't actually think that sounds as funny in the written text as it did in my head when I said it.
Right.
So when
Right.
you're joking about stuff and that sort of thing, I think it is important to recognize that um, things can be misinterpreted. And so you just want to be thoughtful about what you're saying and that it doesn't come off as like flippant or,
Hmm.
you know, sarcastic or something that you didn't intend.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, for sure. And then the other point is that you are likely to be or need to be more thorough in your explanations of things when you're communicating online. And that's probably most trying to think. Probably most importantly in written communication, in my opinion, because again, there's not that nonverbal communication. But in explaining like what kind of, even down to like what do they need to go buy, on Amazon to have the right, tools and treats and stuff on hand. Instead of just saying, freeze-dried chicken, you may need to actually give them the exact brand, the size of the bag,
Right.
all those things, because you can't just like, well, you could show them, I guess, if you're doing a Zoom, but if you're sending them, pre-lesson instructions or something, you want to make sure that you're as complete as possible. And then
I
also
actually
like,
did, on that note, I actually
yeah,
did talk to a trainer who created an Amazon wish list
yes,
for herself with all of her favorite items, because she
yeah,
said that she can then just send the link to other people
mm-hmm,
from that wish list, and it'll have a whole list, and then they can click on the item and buy it. Right. I mean,
yeah,
if you like using Amazon, that's a pretty darn easy way to send someone a clear, list of things that you might want them
totally,
to purchase. Yeah.
totally. Yeah, I think I used to have one of those
Yeah.
back in the day, and that was helpful. But then also like in your explanations on like the mechanics, or I don't know, in like everything you do, I feel like that's the
Yeah,
best way
I
to
think
put it, right?
especially like I realize, describing the setup, don't,
Hmm.
necessarily just think that they understand what they should be doing to set up the space, what they
Right.
need to have with them. Like you said, we have all, it's been a while since we probably first contacted a dog trainer, way
Hmm.
before we were dog trainers.
Yeah.
And I think that, the other thing is that sometimes we went away from that experience wanting to learn more about dog training, but that's not always everyone's experience.
Right.
And so I think that, being really aware of, um, yeah, just the fact that they may not have any of those skills
Hmm.
in their arsenal already. And so not making any assumptions. I like to say to over
Yeah.
communicate online, even if it
Yeah.
feels a little like, I feel like I've said this a lot of times.
Hmm.
It is worth it, because, people, it's easy to get distracted away from technology.
Oh
If,
yeah.
you know what I mean, something happens when you're in the middle of a Zoom meeting and they just missed that little thing that you said,
Right.
you want to make sure you're saying it again. You don't want
Yeah.
them to lose that bit, because yeah, it's going to make them less effective in changing the behavior they're looking to get.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, one last little thing.
Yeah.
We have something really exciting coming up tomorrow.
We
You're
do.
hosting a webinar for us. So tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that and what people can kind of expect.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am offering a webinar on client communication. We will be talking about 5 things your clients need from you. So that's really important to understand, because it is something that I think some things we know intuitively and other things that it takes some thinking about. We will be talking a little bit more about how to communicate virtually, because I think that's something that is obviously relevant now.
Yeah.
But I don't think that the world's just going to go back exactly to where we were. I
Yeah.
don't think that's a good way to look at it, as like, well, why should I even learn these online skills when in X amount of months I can just go back to what I was doing before? I
Yeah.
don't think that's a great great
Yeah.
expectation to set. And so we will be talking about that, and I'll be taking questions. So I'm really excited about what I've put together for you guys. It's kind of been a passion project of mine for a while, and really it's my goal for all of really for all dog trainers to enjoy the human side of this job,
Hmm.
to find that joy in their clients and not come away just thinking, man, this just drains me. Because that's how we get burnt
Totally.
out. And that's how we get to the point where, we're reconsidering what we're doing and all that kind of stuff. And so I think there's a lot in there that can help you guys to recognize, and of course, like I said, some of this stuff is probably stuff you've been doing, but maybe haven't had a whole lot of awareness about it. And other
Yeah.
things, will be new ideas for you that hopefully you can can really improve your communication skills and make you feel more comfortable and confident in dealing with those clients, whether you're online or in person.
Awesome. Awesome. And we will have a little surprise announcement at the end of that webinar, so you probably don't want to miss that either.
Yeah, absolutely. Great opportunities.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Megan.
Yeah.
As always, I've really enjoyed doing these like dual chats every week. So I look forward to doing more in the future, and I really look forward to the webinar. If you have not seen the link yet, just go to moderndogbusiness.com. And it's right on that page to register and sign up for that. And then the recording will go out, you know, if you can't make it live, the recording is going to go out for like a 24-hour replay. So definitely register either way so you can get that material. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks again,
See you guys
Megan.
tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.